Beloved Guruji, this question is in the form of a riddle. I am that which causes awareness to flow from the grossness of the lower mind to the undifferentiated bliss of the superconscious. I am not the mind, but upon me the mind rests. I do not move, yet through me all things move. I am neither this nor that. What am I?
Bullshit. Anandam param sukham. Anandam param sukham. Anandam param sukham. That you are. Who am I if I am not the mind? Who am I if I am not the body? Now what makes you presume that you are not the body and not the mind? What point of reference have you to tell you that I am not the mind and neither the body? Show me that point of reference. When I say to myself, I am that I am, who is this that I am that I am? Who is this Brahmasmi? I am Brahma. Who is this that could say, I and my Father are one? Who is this that could say that I, as the mind and body, is non-existent? Then what part of you is existent to make you cognize your non-existence? You don't know. That is for sure. If I said bullshit. So what do we do to get rid of problems? We go to the approach, we go to a monistic approach. That I and my Father are one. We use that approach in every situation, and what will result by using that approach in any given situation would be this, that I am not the doer, He is the doer. And if He is the doer, who the hell am I to complain about it? Because your very complaint is the problem. If you had no complaint, there would be no problem. So, we give it all to that divine will, that you old chap are the doer, and don't you damn well blame me. Because you control every movement of mine. Because without you and your energy, I cannot even lift up a hand. That's right. So, that will bring us to acceptance of the situation we are placed in. When we accept the situation we are placed in, automatically we are surrendering. We are surrendering not only ourselves, but also surrendering what the mind thought was a problem. And once you surrender the problem, how can there be any problem left? You've thrown it out of the window. Right. So, I am not the doer, he is the doer. Because he is the doer, I accept the circumstance I am in. Because I accept the circumstance that I am in, I surrender myself to the circumstance. You don't need to surrender yourself to God if you don't believe in one. Just surrender yourself to the circumstance. A slight little depth in the mind that you function with, you will see that human life is not apart from divine life. That you are divine. Everything you perceive is divine, and the very organs of perception is divine itself, for the object of perception and the subject of perception and the act of perceiving, they're all but the same. Without the subject, the object cannot exist. Without the act of perceiving, the subject and the object has no existence. There again you go on and on and on, asking yourself, who is saying this? But I'm not the body. Look, I can touch, feel, smell, taste, go to bed and make love, go to the toilet. Is the body then not functional? Of course it is functional. Then why do I deny the body? I deny the body because I feel within myself, or rather some force is feeling within myself, that I am far beyond the body and the mind. Now the greatest mistake that has been made or is being made by various theologies is the denial of the body and mind. Do we really know now, even with the senses, where we are? We are at this conference center that we know. But where are we really? Do we know that? You do not know that until you have been totally integrated and been totally centered. Then only can one know where we are. And how can I know that I am beyond the senses? You cannot know. You cannot know that you have transcended. You can only judge it by comparison to what you regarded a certain object to be before enlightenment, and what that same object seems to you after enlightenment. Let's look at it from a different angle. Do not deny this body. Do not deny this mind. And do not deny that which cognizes the body and the mind. So, how are you dealing with yourself then? We're still going to come to the cognitive factor. But at this moment, how do you stand? You stand in the position of saying my body exists, my mind exists, and the cognitive factor also exists. So therefore, I am existence, and being existing, I can deny nothing, for I am that I am. Now, you'd be surprised I'm keeping myself together. You see. Keep yourself together through the power of love. And therefore the scriptures, all scriptures say, love thy neighbor as yourself. But I would add on to that, not only your neighbor. Here's my neighbor. That's my neighbor. This is my neighbor. Yes. So who is the doer? But I need to cognize, and that is why we've given this mind, this thinking ability which separates you from an animal. And what should the mind be thinking? That everything in this world is good. Yeah. And when you recognize that everything is good, slowly the one O in good will be rubbed away. It will fade away, and there's only God. To reach the highest form of meditation is not the destruction of the senses. The senses will remain, but reaching that higher stage, the senses will be guided differently. Will have a totally different perspective. And what it would take away from you is the craving, the mother of all miseries. The I that cognizes the very existence of this body and this mind is thought forms, which we can call the ego self, that is forever trying to preserve itself in the cognitive factors of saying, I am this handsome guru. The ego is worth nothing because it is just a formation of patterns which you have superimposed upon yourself through the various experiences that you have gone through, and that has left impressions. And those impressions is that which we call the ego. Now, I put my hand on this table and I remove this hand. But an imprint is there. The hand is not there anymore. But an impression or an imprint of the hand is existing on this table. Get out your magnifying glass and you'll see it. What reality is there in this imprint? This very imprint that cognizes me as a body, this very imprint that cognizes me as a mind. So my body and mind is totally dependent upon that imprint. And yet, what is the reality of this imprint? Nil. Let me tell you a little secret. And understand this world. that which you think is real is not real at all. That which you think is unreal is true reality. Huh? Do you get that? Huh? The true reality is that it that cannot find any confirmation in your mind saying that it is real. It can't. So what are you confirming? What are you affirming? Then how can the finite mind ever comprehend that which is infinite? That knowledge of enlightenment is not confined to the mind because it cannot be confined. It cannot be imprisoned. And what is the big self? The reality which exists within you. That is the big self. Indefinable, incomparable, beyond all words, indefinable, but experientiable. Now, if you can regard life to be an experience itself, existing by itself, you will at least come a little way nearer the truth of yourself. Self-realization. Self-realization is when the self realizes itself. It remains at self and exists in its own power. So therefore we call it self-existent, non-dependent. And yet in that non-dependency you enjoy everything that you've done before in a totally independent way instead of a dependent way. That existence experiences itself. There is no outside experiencer to judge it, to say that I am self-realized. There's no outside power to tell you that you are realized. Your measure could only be that calmness, that laughter bubbling in you by the cup that flows over. And when you observe these things, you will know that you are existing in existence by existence itself. So acceptance and surrender go hand in hand, and when they go walk hand in hand, there comes about a sacrifice. Not a sacrifice of your individuality, but the sacrifice of the sense of individuality. And the sense of individuality in this instance would mean that divine life and human life has merged into oneness. Now when divine life and human life merges into oneness, what can exist? without sacrificing individuality. What can exist is you, the real you, in which divinity is merged. You don't go and merge into divinity. You wouldn't know where to find him in the first place. But create the circumstance where he merges into you. And that's why I've said so many times, over and over again, take one step towards God and he takes 10 steps towards you. That's it. He is the one that is forever seeking you. And you bluff yourself by saying, I am seeking God. You're not. You can only water the plant, but you cannot make the plant grow. Yes. So I, with something that has no substance, but which has just created an impression there, presumes that this mind and this body is real. So now, what have we done so far? We are accepting the reality of the mind and the body, and at the same time, we are denying the mind and the body. Because both are true. You're not the body, yet the body. You're not the mind, yet the mind. Then what is your reality? How are we going to prove it? We can only prove it by inference, or by the very factor that reality requires no proof. It exists because of its own existence. The only time you can prove reality is when you have a reference point. And if you do not find a reference point, and where can there be any reference point as far as divinity is concerned? So, existence proves itself by its very existence. So the problem is the mind. And when you can transcend it, go beyond it, and watch it act, then there's another part of you that will tell you. This part, the heart, will tell you, the mind is playing tricks. Let it have fun. Who cares? You become the observer. And then nothing can affect you. And what really observes is not you, but the real doer. He is also the observer. So when you reach that area of being able to observe objectively, then the mind will not affect you. It will not affect you because you have become non-attached from the mind. You let the mind perform. Let the mind do whatever it wants to do. To hell with it. And when that is ingrained within you, you would be pouring out that heart that is within you. The true master might analyze your mind, but his greater job is to open your heart. And when the heart is open, you become more and more receptive to everything around you, because the heart only sees and feels and acts in goodness, which is godliness. Ain't God good, huh? He sure is. Yeah. So, when we stop thinking of ourselves as the doer, what happens is this, that we are surrendering to a higher force which is in us and all around us. But the easiest place to start from is that place in us. Because if you have some cognition and recognition of what is in you, you will automatically project it to everything outside you. So, we come to the point of asking ourselves that does everything in life require to be proved? No. You do not need to prove anything. Because when it comes to the highest level, you need a point of reference, and the highest level being the one, without a second, cannot have a reference point. I exist. I exist because I exist. That's all. And because I, the real me, to which I have no reference point, exists, I can only refer it back to a grosser level of the mind and the body, which finds its existence in that which I cannot prove is existing. So, I'm taking the highest factor of life and bringing it down to the grossest factor and defying the grossness of the grossest factor to that level. And that is what I could compare things with. But when we reach the point beyond comparison, comparison, beautiful word. You're pairing up things in comparison. There has to be two to compare. But what if I want to exist as I am, in my full totality? Then will I not lose the idea of comparing myself to anything else? And the very moment I lose the idea of comparing myself to any subject or object, that is the very moment when I will lose the ego self, that imprint that is existing in my experience, or the impression of the experience. And then where would I be? I shall be incomparable.